Dr. Anya Sharma believed the past was not just stone and bone, but echoes. She felt the heavy silence of the Carpathian mountains, not as a lack of sound, but as the compression of 30,000 years of forgotten history. Her current site, nicknamed the Cave of the Auroral Howl, was a tight, glacial fissure carved into the limestone, its walls shimmering with crystallized water and the faint, ochre handprints of the Upper Paleolithic. Anya was not looking for kings or civilizations. She was looking for the first treaty. She specialized in the deep transition, the era, long before agriculture or even settled villages, when Homo sapiens and Canis lupus looked across the firelight at each other and decided not to kill, but to cooperate. The common wisdom held that the earliest proto-dogs were camp followers, scavengers who grew less fearful over generations. Anya argued it was a conscious, spiritual covenant, a decision made under profound duress and shared respect. For 4 seasons, the cave had yielded only unremarkable material: flint tools, the occasional fragment of a woolly rhino jaw, and layers of ash from ancient hearths. Skepticism from the university was mounting. Then came the anomaly. They had breached a collapsed gallery far deeper than the main chamber, a narrow passage sealed by rockfall since the last ice age. Below the glacial till, they found not just a new floor, but an arrangement. It was a perfectly preserved, oval ring of river stones, about 8 feet across, lined with a finely crushed powder of hematite and quartz. In the very center, standing upright, was a single, flawless step bison horn. It was carved, not with recognizable game animals, but with concentric circles that spiraled outwards, ending in stylized, elongated forms that seemed to be running, or perhaps howling. The air, trapped for millennia, felt heavy and cold, carrying the faint, metallic scent of ozone. "It's not a hearth. It's not burial," whispered Pavel, her lead geologist, his voice thick with awe. "It's staged." Anya knelt, her gloved hands hovering over the fine dust. The arrangement wasn't random. It was precise, following a subtle astronomical alignment she instantly recognized. The axis of the ring pointed toward the rising point of Sirius, the dog star during the winter solstice of that epoch. "It's the first oath stone," Anya breathed, a wave of profound certainty washing over her. "This isn't about food. It's about faith." The artifact, carefully cataloged as the Sirius Altar, changed everything. Back in the field lab, Anya worked in a near-feverish state, comparing the spiral carvings to the few known Ice Age zoomorphic figures. The figures on the horn were too lean, too swift, and too numerous to be anything but wolves. Not the heavy, bone-crushing Canis dirus of the Americas, but the ancestral gray wolf, the lean, enduring Canis lupus that eventually became the dog. Anya focused on the concentric circles. They represented the pack. The single bison horn, the apex prey, symbolized the shared goal of the hunt. But the spirals spoke of something deeper: connection and lineage. Using a high-resolution 3D scan, she noticed faint, almost invisible etching on the base of the horn, a line of small, repetitive marks that seemed almost like a primitive script. She spent 3 nights translating the marks, cross-referencing them against known Paleolithic counting systems and mnemonic symbols. They were not words in a modern sense, but a symbolic record of shared kills and shared sorrows. The symbols repeated: a running man, human; a running wolf, wolf; a heart, life/kill; and a broken V, death/loss. It was a tally of collaboration. But the last entry on the horn, etched deeper than the rest, was different. It depicted the wolf figure, not running beside the man, but standing over a broken V, and the man was touching his forehead to the wolf's muzzle. The image jolted Anya. It was an act of submission, of reverence, or perhaps of profound kinship. It wasn't the human domesticating the wolf. It was the human acknowledging the wolf's superior knowledge of the hunt, of the night, of the spirit world. She realized what the ancient people had witnessed. They had watched the wolf pack operate, its perfect efficiency, its unbreakable loyalty, its silent communication across vast, frozen landscapes. To the early humans struggling against the Ice Age, the wolf was not just a competitor. It was the blueprint for survival in the harshest world. Anya had a vision, triggered perhaps by exhaustion and the cold ozone scent clinging to the horn. She saw the cave floor 30 millennia ago. The ritual ring, bathed in the moonlight of the winter solstice. The hunters huddled, starving. The wolves, lean and hesitant, watching from the periphery. And then the approach. Not a fight, but an offering. The humans gave the wolves a portion of the fire-warmed meat, a gift of processed food they couldn't digest easily raw. The wolves gave them their eyes in the darkness, their sense of the invisible trail, their auroral howl, the song that mapped the world. The script on the horn wasn't the first record of domestication. It was the oath of brotherhood, sworn under the dog star, recognizing the wolf as the original guide into the cold, unpredictable future. The discovery, once presented to the broader archaeological community, was met with a mix of acclaim and intense academic hostility. Dr. Alistair Vance, a rigid paleoanthropologist from Oxford, led the opposition, arguing that the horn was nothing more than a late-stage hunting trophy and the alignments were coincidental. Dr. Sharma proposes that a group of nomadic hunter-gatherers, focused entirely on survival, established a metaphysical covenant with a deadly predator. Vance argued during a conference in Geneva, his voice dripping with condescension. Where is the evidence? A few carvings and a pile of colored dust? The narrative of a spiritual wolf guide is romantic nonsense, not science. Anya knew the physical evidence was tenuous by modern standards. She had to prove the intent, the spiritual weight of the discovery. She returned to the cave of the auroral howl, bringing only Pavel and a specialist in Paleolithic acoustic analysis, Dr. Ilarichun. Anya directed Chun to place specialized microphones inside the altar ring. Her hypothesis was radical. If the site was a spiritual covenant, it must have been activated by ritual. She theorized that the cave, being a natural resonator, was specifically chosen to amplify a particular sound. They worked for days, mapping the cave's acoustic signature. They tested drumming, chanting, and whistling. Nothing produced a significant resonance in the deep chamber. Anya grew despondent, running her hand along the damp limestone wall near the horn's resting place. The resonance isn't physical, Anya, Chin finally noted, adjusting her headphones. The signature is too low, too sustained. It's not human vocal range, not even close. Anya frowned. What is it then? It's a harmonic series, Chin said, her eyes wide as she pointed to the screen displaying the sound waves. A low, complex series of overtones that only resolves when the frequency drops below 50 Hz. The wave pattern, it's not an echo of a sound. It's the absence of sound creating a specific pressure gradient. Anya understood instantly. The humans weren't meant to make the sound. The wolves, Anya whispered, the cold air stinging her throat. The howl. The early humans, seeking protection and guidance, had led the wolves to this specific spot. They had set the altar, and the wolves, guided by instinct or by the humans, had responded. The resonant structure of the deep cave was specifically tuned to amplify the low, long-distance communicative howl of the Canis lupus, transforming it from a sound of the hunt into a vast, omnipresent vibration, a spiritual chord that filled the cave and sealed the pact. The ritual was not a prayer to a god, but an invocation of the wolf spirit itself using the acoustic power of its most ancient and sacred call. The final presentation was not held in Geneva, but in the echoing silence of the cave mouth, broadcast live via satellite to the International Archaeological Committee. Anya stood before the altar, the steppe bison horn gleaming under the portable lights. Dr. Vance was watching, a smug look fixed on his face, ready to dismiss the acoustic magic trick. Anya spoke, not about bones or dates, but about the transition of the spirit. The earliest humans looked at the world and saw a mirror. They saw their own desperation, their own need for a community that would never betray them. They found that reflection in the eyes of the wolf. She then played the recording Ilarichun had engineered, a simulated reconstruction of the single, sustained, low-frequency howl of an ancestral gray wolf, filtered through the acoustic mapping of the auroral cave. As the sound wave filled the chamber, the effect was physical. The air around the altar thrummed. The calcite crystals on the walls vibrated visibly. It wasn't loud, but it was deep, penetrating the sternum and settling in the chest, a sound of the ancient, wild heart of the world. On the monitor, the pressure wave around the altar showed a perfect, sustained, complex harmonic that was utterly unique to the site. It was the sound of sacred space being activated. When the howl faded, Anya pointed to the carving of the man touching the wolf's muzzle. This wasn't an act of domestication. This was an exchange of wisdom. The wolves offered the hunt and the loyalty. The humans offered the fire and the shared future. She explained that the spiral carvings were a visual representation of the resonant howl, the sound mapping the territory of the pack and the spiritual territory of the tribe, now forever linked. The hematite dust was not decoration. It was meant to be rubbed onto the skin, marking the human with the earth blood of the wolf's trail. Dr. Vance, watching the live feed, could only stare at the data. The objective, physical reality of the sound phenomenon refuted his skepticism. The auroral cave was not merely a habitation. It was the birthplace of the bond, a primal cathedral where the most profound alliance in mammalian history was sealed. Anya finished, looking into the camera lens, but seeing only the centuries. We look our dogs today and see companions. This altar tells us our ancestors saw more. They saw the star wolf, the guide to survival, and they've bowed their heads in respect for the oath that saved us all. In the quiet aftermath, Anya felt the profound truth of the ancient stuff. It wasn't just things. It was the story of how we became human, guided by the enduring loyalty of the wolf. The echo of the howl, though simulated, lingered in the ancient stone, a promise that has been kept for 30,000 years and continues to run by our side. The first oath stone was not an end, but the very beginning of the long, intertwined journey of two species. The field season concluded, the horn secured, and the cave sealed for preservation. Anya stood at the entrance, feeling the cold wind, listening for the faint, impossible echo of the pack. She knew the work was only beginning. The ancient wolf stuff wasn't just in the dirt. It was in the DNA of every interaction, every shared look between a human and a dog, a silent language passed down through the millennia, waiting for someone to listen.